Hello, this is Miss Schrader. Today we are going to be talking about the artwork of the surrealist artist Frida Kahlo, whom you can see here in this self-portrait. My students, you're going to need a piece of paper and something to write with. You're going to be taking notes, and when you're done, you're going to give me 10 strong sentences about what you learned about the artwork of Frida Kahlo. So Frida Kahlo was born in 1907 in Mexico City. She died in 1954 in Mexico City. She was the wife of one of the artists we just discussed, Diego Rivera. But whereas Rivera did these big murals that often had political themes, Kahlo normally did much smaller paintings, very personal, very surrealistic. This is one of Kahlo's famous paintings. It is from 1940. It is called Self-Portrait with Thorn Necklace and Hummingbird. It's a small painting, only 24 inches by 18 inches. So yeah, a lot of her work was done on a very small level as compared with that of Diego Rivera. There's a lot of symbolism in this painting. She was very fond of indigenous Mexican cultural symbols and using that in her art. So, Native American Mexican traditions. The dead hummingbird that hangs around her neck is considered a good luck charm for falling in love in Mexican culture. The cat is a symbol of bad luck and death, and the monkey is a symbol of evil. The natural landscape symbols fertilization. When she had been married, she and Diego Rivera wanted to have children very badly. She had so many health issues that she was unable to do so. And so she may have been hoping for that at some future date. Let's see. Um, let's see, the spider monkey we discussed. The thorn necklace could be referring to Christ's crown of thorns. And so she's using a huge number of symbols. In a lot of her artwork, she is symbolizing the physical pain that she is in because she was constantly in pain. This is an actual photograph of Frida Kahlo. When she was a young woman, she was in a streetcar accident, which severely damaged her spine and her back. And throughout her entire life, she suffered from physical pain, and she went through a series of surgeries in an attempt to resolve both the problems with her spine and just her general pain, which were unsuccessful. It contributed to her early death at the age of 47. This painting is called Without Hope. It's from 1945. And at that time, her health had been so bad that had no appetite. And so her doctor was force feeding her. And so she's showing this picture of herself being force fed. In this case, she's being fed with animals and skulls that were held up on a wooden structure, the type that she would use to do her paintings, because there are a lot of images showing her actually doing her paintings while lying in bed because of her health issues. The background is a deserted Mexican landscape showing both the sun and the moon. This painting is called Frida and Diego Rivera, so it's her and her husband. The painting was done in 1931, about 2 years after they were first married. And her relationship with Rivera was one of the most important of her life. They were married, then later divorced, and then later remarried. He was unfaithful to her all the time, and she appears to have been unfaithful to him as well. But she followed him around doing his or helping him with his work most of the time, and only became more famous with her artwork later. As you can see in this painting, he's holding a bunch of paintbrushes and an artist's plate with which to mix his paint together. She, as always, she shows herself in traditional indigenous or Native American clothing from Mexico, with the headpiece, the full dress, things like that. So in this piece is called The Wounded Deer. It's from 1946. She is once again dealing with her physical pain. She has shown herself as a deer filled with arrows. It implies a feeling of fear and desperation. She had just had an operation on her spine in New York. She was hoping that this was going to be successful. It was not. It did not remove her pain. And as a result, she is suffering both physically and mentally. And here you can actually see a picture of Frida painting. I am not certain who the child is who is observing, but this is how she painted quite a bit of her life, particularly since she was often bedridden. This painting is called The Two Fridas. It's from 1939. She did it shortly after her divorce from Diego Rivera, and it shows her two different personalities. One is the traditional Frida in Tijuana costume with a broken heart, sitting next to an independent, modernly dressed Frida. And in her diary, she wrote about this painting and said that it originated from her memory of an imaginary childhood friend. In the painting, the two Fridas are holding hands. They both have visible hearts. Um, the heart of the traditional Frida is cut and torn open. You can see she's got blood all over her dress, things like that. And it is showing Frida's inner turmoil. This piece is called Arbor de Esperanza, or Tree of Hope. It was done later in her life. Once again, it is showing two Fridas. The one on the right side is dressed once again in the traditional indigenous Mexican clothing. She is holding in her hands a back brace that she presumably has removed. More on the left side, we have what appears to be the dead body of Frida Kahlo, um, with scars dealing with her various different surgeries. It's interesting that one side seems to be lighter and the other one is darker, and you'd think that they would have switched the way that they did that. Um, her life continued to really go downhill as time went along. She died in 1954 at the age of 47 as a result of all of these years of pain and suffering. Frida Kahlo has become a symbol of women's power, of indigenous Mexican women's power, of artists' power in the modern era. There is a mural of her in downtown Sacramento, this one here, minus the pretty girl in the dress. Um, all kinds of different things that use her image, her ideas in them. She's become very iconic. All right, you are giving me 10 strong sentences about what you have learned about Frida Kahlo.